Welcome to the Direct Shear Lab. We will briefly discuss the introduction, equipment list, and laboratory procedures to complete the direct shear test. The most common method for measuring the effective friction angle of granular soil in the lab is the direct shear test. In the direct shear test, soil is placed in a direct shear box. A normal force is applied to the sample and then the sample is sheared at a constant rate, while the shear force is measured. Vertical and horizontal deformation of the specimen is measured during the shear test. A proving ring is used to measure the shear force. The proving ring acts as an ideal spring for a range of forces, so its deformation is proportional to force, which is obtained from multiplying the deformation measured by the proving ring constant. Typically, 3 or more shear tests are conducted on a soil using a range of applied normal forces. The equipment you will need for this test is the direct shear testing device, a beaker or bowl, a ruler, a levelometer, balance, and direct shear drop hammer. Laboratory procedures: weigh the empty shear box. Measure the inside diameter of the shear box and the total depth of the shear box. Place soil in the shear box and level with the levelometer. Measure the height of the soil in the shear box using electronic calipers. Weigh the shear box with the soil in it. Place the loading cap onto the sand in the shear box. Be sure that the grooves on the bottom side of the loading cap are oriented perpendicular to the direction of movement. Lock the shear box in the machine assembly with the mounting screws. Apply normal load. Ensure to remove the red retaining screws. Separate the shear boxes with the shear box separator screws. Screw shear box separator screws in to just lift the upper box away from the lower box, approximately 1 full turn to the right, and then retract the screws. Set the horizontal and vertical dial gauges. Coordinate group members for dial reading and data recording. Note that the vertical movement dial gauge may change directions during the test. Be sure that you record the dial gauge readings properly. Press the run button and take readings of the load horizontal dial gauge, the vertical dial gauge at every 10 dial gauge divisions of the load dial gauge. Continue to run the test and record data until you have constant shear for 2 minutes or until you have 3 decreasing shear loads in a row. Press stop. Return the box to its original position by pressing the return button on the electronic control box. Empty the shear box. Vacuum any remaining soil grains and repeat the procedure for loose or dense specimens. Record the proving ring constant for your ring. This concludes today's test.